Okay, we are recording. Thank you everyone for joining us today for our 7th recorded Citizen Assembly. I'm Cezary Jurewicz. I'm co-hosting today with Rosemary Rajwan. And I am from USA. My education is in philosophy and economics. My main interests are in ethics and economics, and my main concern as an activist is animal liberation and social and economic justice. I'll pass it on to you, Rosemary.
Thank you. My name is Rosemary Rajwan. I live in Grenada, which is in the Caribbean, because a lot of people don't know the individual islands. I've been a politician for about 3 years, so this is my main profession, but before that I was an educator mostly. As an activist, I'm interested in environmental work and also injustice generally, like ending injustice. As a thinker, I focus on freedom and probably happiness, like what makes people most fulfilled in life, because I think it's very important. Um, and I'll pass it on to Nazar.
Yes, hello. It's a pleasure for me to join you guys. I am from Lviv, Ukraine. I'm mostly interested in partial development, and I think we can find some common points with Rosemary about making people happy. I think it is a very important task to find a way to make more people happy, because in looking for our happiness, we find ways to improve life in all directions. Um, I am looking forward to productive exchanges with you, and I also wanted to remark about this text you were reading before we started, the structure and the main principles of how these meetings work. And I wanted to say that I really like how they are written, how these 12 points that you mentioned. I like those principles, and I find them to be very well balanced and very constructive.
Wow, cool. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that. Trent, do you want to introduce yourself, or Trent, can you hear us? Hello, Trent. Or I don't know if he. Oh, there he is. He just unmuted himself.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on 1 second here. All right. If anybody can hear me, yeah, I'm from Ohio. This is my first time here. Totally do not understand anything that like what we're doing here, but it sounds like we got a lot of philosophy here, and I am a progressive liberal Democrat. I am not a politician. Don't want to be one. I just have an interest in it, so I'm just here to hear what y'all have to say, and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Thank you, Trent. I'm gonna mute you here, just because you got a lot of background noise. So, you're the only new person here right now, but we do have people watching, so some other people might be, this might be useful for them. So we're using a new networking platform. It's called Agora, the Worldwide Stock Market of Ideas. And that's for every person to develop their own political philosophy out of different ideas, to then show which ideas are most strongly supported by the people. And so we have the idea dominance index for that. It's a list of all the ideas showing which ones have the most support from the people. And then we're able to create political candidates who represent the ideas of the people most closely. And then we can organize to get them elected as the International Logic Party. In these meetings, what we focus on is on actually deliberating the various ideas. So there are all kinds of ideas we could discuss. I'm not going to be sharing the screen right now, but basically we, in these introductory sessions, in these general meetings, we focus on introducing new people by exploring some, let's say, some introductory ideas, while veterans, people who have been here before, they're able to have breakout sessions to discuss some of the other, let's say, more complicated, more advanced ideas in the side room. We're not really going to be doing that right now because there's only 4 of us. If there was 5 of us, maybe, but we could, if Rosemary and Nazar wanted to discuss some idea, and if they wanted to go off to the side, and Trent and you and I, if you and I wanted to discuss some, let's say, more introductory ideas, we could do that. But again, especially for you, it would be so much more effective if you actually explored the Agora first on your own time to read through some of the ideas that are there. And then, yeah, because it would be, well, because then you could find which ideas would be most interesting for you to discuss. So right now, what I would suggest is that we just leave it to, well, Rosemary and Nazar, which maybe one of you, there's a specific idea in Agora, and I can share the screen here. If you don't have anything on your mind, maybe by sharing the screen, we can find an idea that we could discuss or explore.
So perhaps I could begin with my idea on education. I know you support it. I know you already support it. I don't think Nazar supports it. So it'd be good if I could get his support for this idea, and also Trent.
I think that would be a fine idea, actually. Yes. I think we have someone else in the waiting room. Let me just.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Fernando. Okay. So he just joined us. He said he was going to be listening. Fernando, do you want to introduce yourself? It's up to you if you want to or not. I know you said you wanted to be listening.
Nah, I can do a quick intro. Hello, everybody. How y'all doing today? My name is Fernando from Dallas, Texas, in the U.S. I'm interested in working out here hard. Interested in election reform, social justice, economic justice, and as an activist, I help give Latinos a voice in Texas. And that's a little bit about me. Oh, and also I go to school to learn about public urban planning and policy. Thank you. Glad to be a part of this.
Awesome. It's fantastic to have you. I'm glad you could make it. Okay, so this is the idea dominance index, just to glance over it. We could find Rosemary's idea on here. Well, actually, it's our idea. I'm also a supporter of that idea. And I think it's in 7th place. So this is the number 7 idea. And I'll let you go ahead and just take over from here, Rosemary.
Okay, so this is my idea on education, and it's relatively short. It's not very detailed, which is why I think it's easy to read and easy to understand. So I'll go ahead and read it. The education system should cater for the diverse needs and talents of learners. Its primary function must be to develop students' capacity to think, discover, and problem solve. There should be a variety of schools with different specialties at each level. Opportunities must be provided for children to engage in activities related to their individual interests. Early childhood education programs should promote hands-on learning as well as emotional intelligence and social skills, because these contribute to the development of healthy, well-balanced adults who can make useful contributions to society. And that's the idea. So I agree with it, obviously. Cesaria agrees with it. I don't think the other 3 gentlemen support my idea.
I have not supported your idea.
Sorry?
I have just supported your idea in Igora.
Have you?
Yes, I have.
Oh,
Oh, you
so,
have? Thank you, Nazar.
so actually, so yeah, Rosemary, just to clarify, so the best way for us to work is actually, let me go back to seeing that whole room. To start out with gauging how many supporters we have, then how many people who are not supporters but who agree with the idea, then you know, then moving on to questions, clarifications, dissent. So if you want to run us through that.
Okay, so 3 of us already supported, right? Cesare, me, and Nazar. And then for Fernando and Trent, do you agree with the idea, the way it's stated, or do you not agree?
Fernando, I think you might have been there for a discussion of this idea. Did you already support this idea?
Your idea is already number 5 in the universal index.
Oh, whoa.
Okay.
So, okay, so I'm gonna, since Fernando said he's gonna be listening more, I am going to look up Fernando's ideological profile.
Mm-hmm.
My computer is moving really slow for some reason, so kind of annoying. Can you help me, Fernando Sanchez? No, so he's not supporting this idea yet. Trent, he's not in Igora yet. Maybe we can get, do you guys agree with this idea as it was read? Fernando, Trent?
It's not a bad idea. You know,
That's
Yeah.
Trent, right?
We'll have to do that later.
yes, yeah. I mean, that's not a bad idea. What you're bringing up
Okay.
there and everything. I was just wondering. You were asking if I agreed with it or not.
Right. That yeah, we go through the steps to see whether people agree with it. And Fernando, so I don't know. If you want to jump in, Fernando, and let us know. But please continue, Rosemary.
Real quick, I do agree. I'm sorry I haven't been on Agora lately. I've just been busy with school. But I do believe,
Oh, wait.
you know, let kids be able to do more of different types of learning, because I believe militarization of education is not the way to go. It's the way the U.S. does it. It's something that I also fight for or you know, advocate for, because in Texas we are a big powerful state that not only influences the education of our state, but that influences the education around it too. So Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana all get the history of U.S. without like really getting to develop something that might be more beneficial to their community or their education system. And Texas, unfortunately, is now one of the greatest education systems in the nation. We're actually pretty bad.
So
We can say everyone agrees with the idea.
it seems like everyone does agree with the idea. I guess the next step is does anyone have comments or concerns or dissent for whatever reason?
Oh, right now that I'm kind of got my hands free, will we be able to propose a like plan for this, or are we just doing straightly on ideas? Because money kind of influences the way this works, at least here in Texas and probably all of the United States.
Well, you know what? I think this idea could evolve as time goes on, as more people contribute their input and develop better ideas. So definitely, you know, each idea is kind of like a placeholder for the next best idea, you know? So that's the way to approach it. So if we can get you to support it for right now until you have a better idea to replace it with, then that would be great.
I think it is a very well worded idea. It is well balanced, and it includes the emotional component of education. It includes versatility. It includes the need to meet different approaches which are suitable for different types of students depending on their desires and abilities. I really like how this idea is formulated, and I think it is a very good way to express the direction in which our education should develop.
I think so too. And an idea doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, a specific lesson plan. You know, it doesn't have to get into all those details. I mean, maybe it can if there is like a good enough lesson plan or whatever that can become an idea, then sure. But I think it's to guide the policymakers in how they should approach creating, let's say, the lesson plan or the curriculum or whatever, and allocating funding. Trent, so is this an idea that you would support? Is this?
Sure, yeah, that is a supportable idea.
Okay, so when you do register for Agora, you know, you can find this idea it's right now it's in 5th place on the Idea Dominance Index, but you'll also find this in my ideological profile, Rosemary's, Fernando's, and Nazar's.
This is good. So good. So then we move on to another idea.
Yes, if you like.
Yeah, yeah. Let's move on. Let's keep going.
Which one?
Oh, I can share my screen here. Again, to is there anyone who has an idea that they want to raise?
I think there's the other idea on children, like providing for children. I think I already support it, but I'm not sure if everyone else does.
Oh, we got a Michelle Nelson is joining us. You know, I'm thinking that this is a great, I don't know which idea you're speaking of specifically. Is it the #1 idea? Because we've talked about this idea so many times. And
Yeah.
I'd love for us to use this as an opportunity to actually discuss some idea that we almost never get to. And we can welcome Michelle. Actually, if you guys, if Michelle could introduce herself real quick to the group, if you'd like to, Michelle, and we can use this time to contemplate what the next idea.
Yeah.
Michelle, can you hear us?
I'm working on it. Hi.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Audience, we're also live on Facebook. We have a few persons looking on.
I'm trying. Got internet issues as usual here.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. Can you repeat what you just said?
Yes. Could you introduce yourself to the viewers, and maybe there's a few persons in the meeting who haven't met you before, like me, I think.
Well, my name's Michelle, and I live in Pennsylvania. I've worked basically my whole life, numerous jobs, good jobs, and end up disabled. I'm very big on healthcare, universal healthcare. There's a lot that I'm interested in. Cesaro knows that. A lot of things that I would like to make a difference to. Right now, I just can't do all of them at once, and eventually, hopefully, I can get into the more important things to me and everybody else, hopefully soon. That's all.
Thank you.
So, it's nice having you here.
Nice to finally meet you.
You know, I have an idea that I would like to raise, and I don't often get to discuss this idea. Do you know which idea you were going to talk about, Rosemary? Or does anyone else have another idea?
No, I mean, the ones I remember are the ones we spoke about a lot. The only contentious one there is on animal liberation, which I know I'm not supporting. So we want to save that for later on. But if something easier is on your mind, go ahead.
Well, this is, I'm gonna, oh, looks like Trent is back. He dropped out for a moment and he's rejoining us. So this is an idea that I almost never bring up in discussion, but I think it's a pretty good idea. Would somebody else like to read it?
Sure. I could read it. So it says, orphan children are the most vulnerable members of our society, and they must be given by society every possible effort to experience the natural comforts of a loving family and an enriching upbringing. The implementation of this goal should primarily revolve around making the process of adoption as easy as possible for any person or couple able to raise children. Naturally, this will involve adequate resources for confirming the performance of such parents. For children who are still unable to find individual homes, in addition to the basic needs of food, shelter, healthcare, and education, we must provide a protective, nurturing, and proactive community. This community would prepare the children for further education, life choices, and career choices. Furthermore, such a community must also be attentive to the different comfort and developmental needs of girls, women, and boys, men. All of them should be afforded access to being guided by role models, both within their gender and outside of it. As such, the goal is not just to develop the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the children, but also their confidence in their value to others in various aspects of life: social, romantic, economic, political, etc.
So I'm a supporter of this idea.
That is a very good idea.
Yes, it's a very good idea. I was adopted, so I know what it's like.
Yes, that's a brilliant idea. I agree.
We're gonna be late. Everybody, march.
I muted you again, Trent. So if you want to speak, you know, you can always unmute yourself, but because there's always background noise, just to turn that off.
I just gave this idea 9 points.
All right. So, who else? Come on, Rosemary. Come on, step up. Run this. I want you. Take charge more.
Sarah, I'm hearing this idea. Is it one of yours?
Yes. So that is one of my ideas.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because a lot of the times we focus on developing children, but there isn't usually a conversation on orphan children. And orphan children are unique because they depend fully on the society as a whole to raise them. So I think I'll support this idea. Definitely a good idea for overall development of society. Is there anyone who's not in support of this idea? I believe everyone said it's a good idea, but just to double check, is there anyone who disagrees with the idea? Any portion of it, any sentence or phrase within the idea that someone doesn't agree with? Okay. So I think we have a room full of supporters. So if you're not already supporting the idea in Agora and you do have an ideological profile, if you've already created an account in Agora, please go ahead and find the idea and support it. It'll be on Cesari's ideological profile. I'll support it soon too, so be in mind. And that way it'll rise in the IDI and the IPI, right?
Yes, I'm gonna share, just wanted to see where this idea stands right now. Nazar has already supported it, so I think this idea has moved up slightly. So I'll bring the IDI on screen. Yeah, my computer is so slow right now. I think it's because I'm streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, actually, this idea might be, so yeah, if we can get Fernando to support this and Trent, this idea will move up a lot more. I think there are simply, oh, it's still in 43rd place with 18 points. So when you get a chance, Rosemary, if you can add it, and Michelle, you know, let's make this idea move up. And I don't know, you want to continue to the next idea?
Sure. Have one in mind?
I do not have anything in mind right now. Is there anyone who has a specific idea that they would like to advocate? Or maybe if you don't have a specific idea, maybe there's a particular issue that's interesting to you and we could search for the various ideas that we have in Agora about that issue.
Are there any ideas on environmental tax or pollution, like policies to reduce pollution, reduce global warming, that kind of thing? Like ideas related to environmental protection?
So actually, there are two ideas, and I think you might be a supporter of this one already. One is about waste disposal or waste management. The other one is on energy production. I support both of these ideas in my ideological profile. So I'm going to pull up my IP just as an example. And the one about waste disposal is shorter. And so maybe we can start out with that one. Because the other one is about sustainable energy and we've discussed it before. So that's why it might be better just to discuss this one first.
Should I read?
Please.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So the idea is a universal one, meaning that it's applicable to the entire world. In order to reduce the impact of our society on the environment and to enhance the stability of both our society and the environment, we must make every effort to minimize the production of waste materials. This should be achieved primarily through programs that financially incentivize the consumers to segregate and recycle their waste materials. Second, we should sponsor community programs that educate the public how to reduce the amount of waste we produce and how to dispose of potentially hazardous waste. I agree with it 100%. I'm not sure if I already support it though, but if I don't, I will definitely look for it and support it. is there anyone in the room who agrees with it or already supports it? Could I see by a show of hands? So it's me, Cesare, Nazar.
I support.
You support it? Yeah,
Yeah.
I see. Okay, and Michelle?
Yes, I support it.
Okay, so
Trent has his hand up. Is that to show support, Trent, or is that just to raise your hand to speak? Because you put your hand up like, you know, you used it inside of Zoom. Let me unmute you so you can clarify.
That my hand was raised in support. Yes.
Nice. So yeah, please add that idea to your ideological profile so it can move up the IDI.
I just gave this idea 6 points.
So Nazar has supported this idea. So this idea already had 31 points before we started this, but I think it had 31 points. Let's see where it stands right now. What? So now it's in 13th place with 3 supporters, 37 points. Nice, nice work.
okay. So now we do the other idea, the longer one on sustainability.
All right, so the other idea is about sustainable energy, and it's in 7th place. This idea has 6 supporters, 76 points. Here you go.
Okay, so should I read? I'll read. It's a universal idea, and it says, in order to reduce the impact of our society on the environment and to enhance the stability of both our society and the environment, we must make immediate efforts to switch the vast majority of our energy infrastructure, at least civilian, to sources of energy that are not destructive to the environment. In the short term, this means relying more on renewable sources of energy, such as solar, wind, tidal, geothermal, and nuclear fission when safety can be ensured. In the long term, this means developing nuclear fusion technology for a practically unlimited source of energy. The first method towards achieving these goals should be through placing additional costs on all pollution from energy production, such as a carbon tax. The second method towards achieving these goals should be through government financing of research in sustainable sources of energy, such as nuclear fusion. The third method towards achieving these goals should be through removing any incentive for continued use of non-renewable energy sources. The fourth method of achieving these goals should be to incentivize the retraining of workers from fields in non-sustainable energy to fields in sustainable energy. So I do agree with this idea, and I will support it in Igora very soon. Those of us who agree with this idea, we raise our hands again to show, and then we'll discuss anyone's questions or comments if there's anyone who doesn't support the idea. So I support the idea. I believe it's Cesare's idea. He already supports it. Michelle, Fernando, Trent.
Yes, I support it, definitely.
Definitely support it. Anything to stop climate change.
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so 3, and Fernando, Michelle, do you support
Yes,
this
I
idea?
agree.
Michelle does. And Fernando? Fernando is muted.
So it's fine. He's showing his hand. So everyone here agrees with it, you know. So please go and support this idea in your ideological profile if you have not yet done so. Or after, you know, if you can't do it now, you know, do it later. I was hoping that there would be one other guy from Egypt joining us. He said he would be, so I'm kind of disappointed that he's not here yet. Because Egypt is all fucked up politically. Actually, I told him it's all fucked up, and he said that it's kind of a, it's it's not even all fucked up. It's worse than that. So he should be here of all people.
Want to add a few letters to that one there, Cesare? Come on, we can do that.
Wait, add a few letters?
I said we can add a few little letters to that too if you want to. It's a little worse than the effed up one. It is though. It is. It's horrible.
I'm not familiar with the situation in Egypt.
So
Was he here before, Cesare?
no, he was not here.
Okay, I thought there was one a long time ago from Egypt. I'm probably wrong though. Wouldn't be anything new.
Yeah, no. So he was not. My computer is moving kind of slow. If there's anyone else who has an idea that they would like to present to raise to the rest of us, we're going through them pretty quickly right now.
I mean, my other idea that I created is on Grenada. It's an idea specific to Grenada because I meant to have more persons from Grenada participating, and it's an idea on the political situation in Grenada and how to form a better government from the politicians' standpoint. I think it would be nice if others probably would listen to it and offer feedback.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, okay. Because it'll be good to get the opinions of persons from around the world. Because I think that's what we do. We don't just focus on what's happening in our country, but we understand that whatever happens in one country affects the rest of the world. Like we're all connected. Political
That's what we need.
are intertwined. So as citizens of the world, we suffer together or we prosper together. So yeah, we can probably read that idea.
Give me a second. I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah.
Here. Okay. Yeah, because that idea, I was even thinking about reading it, but I'm like, nah, it's a Grenada idea. I don't need to read Grenada ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, wait, I think I did actually read it. Is it the 23-point idea or which idea?
Yeah, because it was very important to me at the time. And I don't know if there's anybody from Grenada looking on Facebook or if there's anyone who may view the recording after. So perhaps, we wanted to discuss, it might gain some support locally. And it's a pretty short idea. It's very concise. And I think it's a clear solution to our problem here with governance and our failed democracy. I'll go ahead and read it. So my idea is that all opposition parties and political activists should merge to form ILP Grenada and offer the electorate a feasible alternative to the current administration. By encouraging voters to utilize the Igora platform, ILP Grenada members will help to rewire the minds of citizens. The end goal is to build a healthy democracy on island, which will then serve as a model for the rest of the world. And so since you wouldn't be familiar with our political structure in Grenada, what we have is pretty much a one-party government for the last 2 elections. So we're kind of becoming like China. We had elections, but the same political party has been winning every seat. And yes, there were democratic elections, but there were issues raised about the process and how fair it was. But it's just that I feel like our democracy has been undermined because we don't have a viable opposition. And this was just my solution. Like, everyone in politics outside of the government should just join to offer an alternative government rather than having other political parties, and we're kind of not cooperating with each other. So we don't have a full team that can replace the government. That's the problem. So if anyone wants to comment on this idea.
I like it. That's what we need here. We need at least a third party here because it's a mess. Fernando, you know that. It's
Oh,
getting
we
late.
desperately need a third party. So
Yes, we do.
I'm up for that.
Yes, we do. And obviously, if we don't get an independent on there, I'm afraid of this coming in November. I really am. I'm scared crapless. 'Cause it's just
Yeah,
gonna
no
get
doubt.
worse.
No doubt, because
I already
we're gonna
voted.
get the same thing. We're gonna get the same 4 years with either candidate, with pretty much.
I know that's what's sad. I already voted. I did my mail-in ballot. It's already sent in. I got my verification. So I'm good. I did my part. It's just the rest of
Yeah,
us that need to.
I voted
get it in.
too, and Ohio voted for Biden.
No, I'm in PA, so I'm not far from you there, Trent.
Yeah. No, you're not.
I'm not, and you know how bad PA is.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I don't know. I like your governor there, but
Well, you're about the only one. I just lost a
really,
lot of friends over him. A lot.
really,
Oh yes.
really, I'll
Yeah.
be damned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Tom Wolf, Pennsylvania governor.
I've liked him since the day he was voted in. But
Oh yeah,
you know, they look at his
I'm waiting.
polls and they're good, but then everybody that turns around, and I guess I'm just associated. I don't want to say the wrong people because a lot of them are very, very old friends, but the difference is just getting worse and worse and worse. And the
thing is,
attitudes it's getting bad.
in West Virginia, their gubernatorial races are coming up, and the primaries are going to be happening, and there's one progressive that's running, and the other two are Democrats, but I don't think they're as progressive as a gentleman is one of the guys that is running. His name is Stephen Smith, and I don't know where he's from.
I believe I've heard of him.
Yeah, but he's running a hell of a good campaign.
Well, I agree with this idea, and I think it's applicable in all kinds of places. Yeah, it's too bad it's just a grant. Actually, I have read that idea before, and I did like it. But yeah, it's totally.
I loved it.
I was thinking,
You're exactly right in every word of it. Exactly right, Rosemary. You're perfect. But especially here, to get it to change, at least in this state, is unless you get everybody, it's going to be impossible because it's natural gas and fracking. That's all we have here, and the taxation.
And that's exactly
Trent,
what we have.
You know what our taxes are here in PA. That's why I get my gas and everything else in Ohio.
I take it you're from Pittsburgh area.
Just north. Just north. Takes me about 6 minutes to get the Ohio line. They're in Lowville.
Oh, you're near Steubenville or Youngstown.
Well, About Youngstown. I'm in not far from Newcastle. So yeah, I'm right there.
Yeah, I'm about 2 or 3 hours south of Youngstown. So
You know, and you're right there, East Liverpool, right?
no, I'm not even near there. I'm more towards Parkersburg, West Virginia. So
Oh, that's good. We're tri-state.
yeah, Mid Ohio Valley.
So we know, Rosemary, what you're talking about exactly. And it's sad because you can't overrun
I
the
think it did.
gas and the fracking around here. And that's a big problem. That's why our taxes are so high here in my state. They're unbelievable. We have the highest gas prices. I think the third highest in the whole country here for gas prices, tax. All of our taxes.
All the nose pieces.
So I know where you're at. I wish I could change it, but
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the leadership of a country is so important. And what I've also realized is that there are very few people who are able to get into politics. Like there are a lot of citizens with great intentions and great ideas, but the proportion of politicians is always sort of small. So we need the few who are actually interested in politics, frontline politics, to put their heads together as opposed to being fragmented. Because to offer an alternative to a relatively strong, solid government requires a lot of cooperation, like a lot of teamwork. The individual competence doesn't really count. You know, it's about building a solid team that can truly govern and turn a country around.
You know, I gotta say, I really like the way that you actually phrased it. That's one of the things I really like is the language, your choice of language. By encouraging voters to utilize the Agora platform, ILP Grenada members will help to rewire the minds of citizens. Rewire. I mean, because it's so intense, but it's also so appropriate and so correct.
Yeah, that's the thing. Our situation here is very intense. We have the exact opposite of an intelligent democracy. No joke. If you Google or YouTube campaign videos from Grenada, it's ridiculous. You know, you have like concerts, you have the candidates on stage. Sometimes they dance, or Prime Minister has danced. In the last elections, they got glow sticks, and so supporters were waving glow sticks. They usually bring in an entertainer. And there's nothing wrong with all this, but then when you take it in the context of a failed economy, high levels of debt, high levels of poverty, unemployment, like, can you afford to be singing and dancing, or should you use that as an opportunity to really question candidates? My problem with the voters and why I suggest they need to be rewired is that they're not demanding enough from the government. Like, they're not asking questions. They're not asking, what are your policies? So the government gets away with being elected without having to present solid policies to the electorate. And which is why I think it's good to tackle the problem from the voters' perspective too, because we kind of create our leaders. I mean, if we only have bad leaders, then somebody from the electorate needs to step up to be a good leader. But if bad leaders can get away with being bad leaders, then we'll always have bad leaders. So I think it's up to us as voters, because I voted for me, but it's up to us as voters to not only vote for somebody good, but to ensure that candidates are good and they remain good by, we have to constantly demand good policies from them. and ensure that they do make good decisions. Like they don't just get into office and relax for 5 years and then get reelected and relax for another 5 years. So it's up to the citizens of a country to really be alert and awakened so that bad governments and corrupt politicians are not in office. So I really think rewiring people is very important, because I think the citizens sort of maybe unconsciously create this nonsense by tolerating too much or assuming that politicians have good intentions. It's a bad assumption to make.
The corruption is the problem here. There's no other. We have great people. We have great ideas. But the corruption, and it's not just the last few years, it's been eons of corruption. Unbelievable corruption. It's worse right now, and it's going to get worse either way. So everybody knows it, they just don't have the guts to overcome it. Now, even when prior to us only having you know who and Biden, there were some very, very, very good delegates running. All of them. They all had good views. They all had good thoughts of the future. They all, let's say most. There were some that were off the wall. But anyway, but it's like the generations are stuck. If you look at the ages of who's voting, they're all stuck. But they don't have the guts to go forward and make a change.
The only candidate that was not good, I don't know what you thought, what the rest of you think, but I didn't think Tulsi Gabbard was good, but I thought everybody else was good.
Yes, no, I agree. But a lot of people I know love Tulsi, and especially one guy, he thought, boy, she was going to nail it. And I'm like, I don't know, you said you voted, Trent, that she was on the third party or the third.
I voted, but I didn't vote for her.
No, I didn't either.
Okay, well, hey, we need more candidates. Michelle, if you want to announce yourself as an ILP candidate, Trent, if you want to declare yourself as an ILP member, you can look at the principles inside of Igor. I think they're pretty difficult to disagree with. You could announce yourself as a candidate, not even necessarily to try to get elected, but like, because, we have Cynthia as the presidential candidate for the ILP. She's not expecting to get elected realistically, but she's serving a really important role in showing people that, hey, you could announce yourself as a candidate, and if you have good ideas, there are a lot of people who will actually support you. When you organize through this system, through our system, frankly, if you do it any other way, then yeah, you're just gonna have to basically sell yourself out for money. But with our system, you don't have to sell yourself out for money. No one does. So maybe you guys can become our candidates and take this forward in Pennsylvania and Ohio.
Give me a little time to get my leg back, and I'll be there, right there, and I'll take it in a heartbeat.
And I'd like to second that. Right.
Go
Because
Rosemary.
yeah.
I said go Rosemary. Let's go.
Okay. Right. Because even though you may not have a realistic chance of getting into office, it definitely keeps the candidates on their toes, like those who are more popular, because they know that there's somebody right behind them, and if they do nonsense, that person would gain more of the voters' support. So it kind of keeps them in check and makes them do the right thing. Fernando?
Yeah, let me just give my 2 cents, right? I've been listening to y'all, like, it's a really good idea. once I get back on Negora, I will definitely support it. See, I do the same thing, except I go and I change the culture of what our community has been doing. Again, I help Latinos, which is a minority in the state of Texas. Well, we're soon to be the half of the majority. Or I forget the term. It's a minority majority, if that makes any sense. But we're soon to be a force to reckon with. And my goal is not really to so I'm nonpartisan. I make sure that my community is voting, make sure that they're participating with their civic engagement, because it's a civic responsibility for us to actually change and actually wield that power of voting. But we do not understand that because we are first generation students or first generation citizens. So our parents never did the voting. Our parents never talked about going out to do in politics. Our parents never even said nothing about even being a part of the system, especially like coming from a lot of Latin American countries where sometimes all their elections are just frauds. Like you were talking about how China does their they have what's it called, support-based elections. If you don't support them, then you won't get the resources you need. You won't get the a bunch of things that won't be going good for your community. And most of the time, they just get rid of the guy. I forgot the name of the documentary, but I took also a course on China's government, so I kind of know a little bit of how it works over in China. But they're moving into a democracy just for the fact that people are really getting to understand that it's not really benefiting them, and they're just driving them out for production. They're kicking them out of their old houses to build newer buildings, but mostly for tourists, because they all have to live within a space that's 4 by 8 rooms. Literally that's nothing. I'm 6'4", so I would not be able to fit in one of those things if I were living in that type of country. And if the people don't actually understand that and come to a consensus to change, then nothing really happens. But luckily they're driving for democracy. How long will it take? Who knows? But again, I really love the way you said rewiring, and that's a little bit of what I do myself here with my community, right? And if I were to get more people involved, there's definitely be a way to think of ideas, because for me, policy makes more sense than actually voting for a party.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, what I like about what you said is the perspective of an immigrant in a country, and the fact that generally the expat population, they wouldn't think of getting into politics. I'm actually from South America. I'm from Guyana, and my parents migrated here to teach, and they would never have gotten into politics. But the thing is, people migrate for different reasons. But in Guyana, the political situation was terrible, and there was a lot of heavy crime related to the bad political situation. So, I mean, it's interesting that one of the factors for migration is probably escaping crime and political corruption. But then persons come to another country and they take a back seat. When I was a kid, I didn't think anything was wrong with Grenada. I thought life was perfect. And then, here's the harsh reality of being an adult. But I think expats, they want to be on good terms with the government because they need citizenship. And I think a lot of expats, they have a wealth of knowledge and they can make useful contributions to the country they're living in, but they tend not to. I think they feel like they just shouldn't get into politics. But it was interesting because while I was campaigning, some idiots did raise the question of whether I was qualified to be a candidate. I probably sounded too non-Grenadian. But I think, you know, we're all citizens of the world, and we can definitely offer solutions to any part to problems in any part of the world, you know, regardless of where we live. And I think, you know, moving forward for the future, we should definitely look at persons moving around more and getting into government anywhere rather than just the citizens who probably live for generations in a country. And it just is an important point, like what you said about immigrants not really being active in politics. But you know, once you live in a country, whatever happens there does affect your own survival. So, you know, there's no getting away from it. That, you know, everyone needs to take voting seriously and needs to assess the candidates that are running for office.
So I don't have a comment. I think this is a good idea. I would support it if I could, but I can't because it's a not Grenada idea. I think there's, in a way, I mean, I like the idea, but I don't know how it really fits into Agora. That's one of the questions. You know, first of all, whether it should be a universal or a Grenada idea. And then second of all, you know, you're saying that it's a opposition parties. And frankly, they will never do that. Like the parties will never unify as ILP. Basically, what we're gonna have to do is take away all of their support, remove their support from their base until they just collapse. So, I mean, that's just not gonna happen. Parties will not unite in the ILP. We just have to eat them from the inside out. So that's kind of the, whoa, Joe from Wales is joining us. Oh, this is exciting. I've been, oh. So we have Joe joining us. He's from Wales. Joe, if you could introduce yourself, you know, we usually do a standard introduction of saying, well, your name, your nation, your professional and educational experience, if you want to disclose it, your main interest as a thinker, and your main concern as an activist.
Okay,
Please.
I'm not going to remember all of that. I'm Joe from Wales in the UK, in the valleys. Background, yeah, so currently doing voluntary work in XR, Extinction Rebellion in the UK, and working on People's Assemblies. We recently had a People's Assembly for the Global South, and education, yeah, that happened. But it's irrelevant, I guess. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Cool. So we just discussed, we went through a bunch of ideas because we didn't really have new people. Well, we did have one new person, Trent from Ohio, and he was kind of said he was going to be listening more. So we didn't go with the standard program, which is intended more for new people. We didn't have our breakout rooms. We were just, as a group, kind of exploring some of the, let's say, the ideas that we normally never get into. So, and we were just discussing one idea that's related to Grenada. I was thinking that this might be a good time to, I was thinking it would be a good time to move on to another idea and actually put forward a USA idea. But now that Joe from Wales is here, because basically we had a Grenada idea and all the US people were resonating with that. Now I wanted to do a US idea, but I don't know how appropriate that is right now. What I'd be interested in is to give Joe a quick introduction about how we work. So maybe it might require looking at some of the previous ideas that we discussed, especially the energy idea, you know, since he is with XR and that's climate change is the biggest concern. So we did just discuss a sustainable energy idea, and I think everybody here was on board with that idea. Joe, real quick, have you seen the presentation of Igora? You are, well, I mean, I did show you, right, right. I showed it to you personally. So you know how that works. So there was one idea about sustainable energy that was raised and everybody agreed with that. So we moved on to the next idea. Well, you know, until a better idea comes along, we don't have to revisit that. But is there, unless there is a particular issue that's interesting to you, that maybe, or some topic that you would want to discuss, maybe we can look at some ideas within Igora that might represent a solution to that issue.
What I wonder is if you have the link to the Agora.
I'm gonna share that right now in the chat. And sorry to take over from you. You're kind of running that, Rosemary. Should we wrap up this discussion with the grenade idea? Any closing thoughts on that? Do you want to take us through that? Just to make sure, you know, we had any closing thoughts that needed to be said. Rosemary?
Yeah, well, I just want to say that pretty much this is what I wanted, to just get everyone's perspective on the idea. I mean, and generally it seems that it's an idea that could be adapted to different countries. You know, it could probably even be modified into a universal idea. So I welcome the feedback, and it was good to get everyone's perspective and hear about your own experiences.
You know, I think it's a good idea to, you know, because there are all kinds of ideas in Igora. Some are intended to be very specific policies based on which politicians should base their campaigns, you know, specific solutions. But then there are some other ideas that are just cultural ideas. They're not really political. They are, but they are, it's almost like tweets that are trending, you know. It's just like when a tweet is trending, it's because it's resonating with something that the culture is, you know, that the society, that community is experiencing. So ideas can also play that role, you know, like they can be supported with 0 points just for people to, like, there's actually an idea about Mother's Day that I wanted to put forward. And it's not a political idea. It's really just a social, cultural idea. But I wanted to put that forward. Like, we have ideas about what are some great songs. Like, you know, we have just, yeah, song ideas that are also in Igora that several people are supporting. So do we have another idea that somebody would like to specifically raise for discussion right now? And Joe, I'm kind of, especially with you, if there is anything specific that you would like to discuss, because we just discussed a whole bunch of things. So if you want to bring the discussion back to sustainable energy, we can. Or are you already registered for Igora? Are you already inside of Igora?
No, I've registered, but I'm trying to then reset the password. So that's so I'm not quick off the mark in terms of saying, well, I want to discuss this, I want to discuss that, because it'd be nice if I was looking at the relevant page, and then once I've got in there and reset my password and stuff, then that might be easier. I mean, I like discussing lots of stuff. Doesn't have to be about climate change. It is an important issue to me. Poverty, and sort of power relations, kind of important issues to me. And things like deliberative democracy, that kind of thing, is also important to me. And where people find meaning. I'm interested in those stuff, so I don't mind.
You know, well, we have the idea about a lot of us have been through the discussions on the universal basic income many times before. That was actually the #1 idea until just today, the idea about equal opportunity for children took first place over the universal basic income. Not that it matters that much. They're all, ideas that are strongly supported, like near the top. So it doesn't matter what's in first place or second all that much. But so that's just an interesting, I don't know, I thought it was interesting. So that idea, the UBI is strongly supported within our community. I want to, well, here, I'm just going to share the screen and let's just go through it from top down. And if there is, if anyone would like to specify what they would like to discuss, if, as a stopping point, a discussion point, we could do that. So we could actually just read the idea dominance index, just the general ideas, just to get a sense of what the order of ideas is on the idea dominance index. So here we are, all categories except Igora. In first place, we have, this is an idea about equal opportunity for all children, education, healthcare, and well, children being afforded all kinds of different opportunities. Regardless of their parents' choices or quality of life. This is the number 2 idea. It's about the universal basic income. This idea is about, in third place, it's about criminal justice system reform. This idea in fourth place, fairness and economics, government and fairness, government and economics. It's an idea talking about market economics and how it should be the basis of an economy because it's the most fair way of relating value. This is one of the important ideas that I like to discuss, the number 4, the economics idea. The idea in fifth place, actually, the education system, wait, is this? Wait, is this, oh, this is Rosemary's idea. So we also discussed, this is the idea that we discussed first today, that Rosemary raised. It's about how education policy and how it should cater to the diverse needs and talents of learners. And again, if any of you want to stop to discuss any of these ideas, please let me know. This number 6 idea, it's about healthcare, how healthcare is not an ordinary good in the market. It's what the role of the government should be in healthcare and how healthcare should be funded. Well, yeah, public funding of healthcare in general, besides private. So it's kind of, it's not really talking about really, well, the administration of healthcare. It's talking about, well, the economics of healthcare and the relationship of public sources of funding to healthcare. The idea in 7th place is about sustainable energy. So it's about moving towards sustainable energy away from fossil fuels. And there are 4 main ways that are suggested of doing so, including a carbon tax, financing of sustainable sources of energy, removing incentives for non-sustainable sources of energy, and subsidizing, incentivizing the retraining of workers from non-sustainable to sustainable energy. That was the 7th idea. The 8th idea is about animal liberation. It's a very brief idea. The most fundamental component of reducing overall violence and suffering in the world is to ensure freedom from captivity for all animals, including humans. To achieve this goal, no one should be allowed to hold captive any other animal, especially to breed them or to harm them at a later time. So this idea is about total animal liberation. This idea in 9th place, are any of these ringing a bell for anybody? It's, if you want to stop to discuss any of these. the number 9 idea, the war on drugs has failed. It's about legalizing drugs and about providing drug treatment to people, treating drug abuse as an illness rather than a crime. The idea in 10th place is, this is actually a very philosophical idea. Nature of reality, human capacity for understanding reality, mechanics of reality, ethics, rights, trust in politics. This is a really big idea about all of these things. That would be a long discussion.
Looks nice.
It's, hey, if you wanna, if we wanna analyze this one, if you want to bring this one up for discussion, I'd be happy to do it. I wrote it. What do you all think so far with the ideas that we just saw? Should we look at that one, spend a few minutes on that idea? Technically, we have 35 minutes left of the official meeting time, but we can always hang out for overtime. I was thinking about looking at a brief idea, something that's simpler, but we could look at this one. I'd love to look at that idea. You want to talk? Yeah.
I like it.
All right.
But then again, I like quite a lot of other ones too. I'm quite open.
So, all right, well, let's have maybe read through a little bit of this and see what I don't know, what people think. I'll go ahead and read this. Nature of reality. This is the first section. Reality is a fundamentally mysterious duality between the realm of subjective experience, also known as consciousness, and the realm of physics, time, space, matter, and energy. It seems that we will never learn which is most real because the realm of experience appears to be generated by the realm of physics, while the realm of physics is dependent and/or can be reduced to experience. The two are inextricably interdependent on one another, like two sides of the same coin. Just before we move on to section 2, any opinions, any thoughts on that?
So I agree with it so far.
Okay.
Does it say we don't know which one is most real? Whereas it could be that they are equally real.
Right. Right. You know, what this idea is intended to capture is that we have these two perspectives, and they're both saying that this is the most, you know, like science and physics is saying that everything is based on you know, on matter and energy, right? But then you have consciousness, and it's saying that, hey, everything could be just a dream. Like, you know, matter, time, space, and energy could not even exist. It could all be just a product. Maybe you're just dreaming everything, right? Like, you can't even tell. There's no way that one can, each one is trying to disprove the other, but ultimately they can't. And so the point is to say that they're interdependent on one another, and they're both probably just as real. They both need one another.
It could, I mean, could it be like similar things in physics where two different stories can be real? So if someone's observing a train moving, they might see one story if they're on the train and a different story if they're off the train.
Wait, are you saying story? Well,
yeah, a different version of reality. If you're on the train, you get one version of reality. Maybe say the speed of sound. It can change, like, because of relativity. So you might have one perspective on reality or time if you're on a train or moving very fast, and you might have a different perspective on time and reality if you're off the train observing it from the platform.
you're not. You're just talking about different perspectives, right? You're not talking about different speeds and relativity of time, right? You're not talking about that.
yeah, it's the reality. You can have different stories about reality, which actually seem to say different things about reality, which almost contradict each other.
You know, maybe, but I'm always careful with analogies. It seems that maybe it's, yeah, I mean, because analogies can only go so far. If you dig too deep into it, then, I mean, yeah, I'll go with you on that to an extent. But if you try to compare the two sets further, then maybe the analogy doesn't work. You know, okay, actually, if we read this idea further, there are other points that are related to this, you know, because like one of the other sections, and I'll share this on the screen, it's about the idea, this idea of free will. I'm going to skip section 2 for a second, just as an example. Free will is an illusion. Humans, like all other animals, are subjectively experiencing machines. We are controlled by our desires, and our desires can only be controlled by our other desires. The complexity of the interaction among our desires gives us the illusion that we are somehow in control. And so this idea relates to, like, they do brain scans of people like making some kinds of decisions, and then they can say by doing brain scans, they can see that what people consciously experience as making a decision at a certain point in time, they already know what decision that person made by looking at their brain scan. So people use this as an example to prove that you know, we're not like this whole idea that we think we're consciously in control. Well, that it's, well, not real, because you can see that all the consciousness emanates from the brain, you know, so by tracking the brain, you can really track consciousness, and you can see how mechanical it is, and so on. So that's one of the points that section 1 is talking about. It's saying that one of the perspectives is saying that all of consciousness is just a product of the physical reality of, you know, the chemistry, the neurochemistry that goes, you know, that happens in the brain. But then at the same time, you know, physics could be just a dream, and so on, or there's more, yeah. So I don't know if, it's difficult to analogize that. It's kind of a unique example.
It's interesting to know what happens to, so the evidence seems to be that free will doesn't exist, but that will be from the physical perspective. And it'd be interesting to see what happens to free will, the question of free will, if you were to look at it from the perspective of subjective consciousness. The same question of free will from this perspective,
you know,
of subjective consciousness.
That is my favorite way of looking at it, because that's the thing, is that the simplest way to, what's the word, refute free will, is to say, okay, let's say there is free will, now explain what it is. And as soon as you try to explain what it is, that's where you actually don't have a way to explain it, which is not mechanical, which is it's not in some way causal or random, you know. So the point is that, okay, yeah, sure, it exists if you think it exists, but now explain it, and you can't. So you can't actually meaningfully express that as a concept. So that's how I look at it from the subjective perspective, is that you can't describe it because it doesn't exist. It's actually a linguistic, and this is why section 2 to me is so interesting, because it looks at language and how language actually shapes our reality. The whole concept of free will is really a product of basically language manipulation. It's you know, because you have causality, you have this theoretical randomness, that's absolute absence of causality, and then people say that free will is some kind of a third way besides causality and besides randomness. Okay, well, what is it exactly? And so, but people say it's, so you have these two things, and then people say, well, it's not causality and it's not randomness, it's something different. But what is it? And so using language, people use language to bring it into existence, but that's the only substance that this concept has, is actually linguistic basis, but no real basis. And in section 2 of this idea, to me, this is really interesting. The concept of God as a person and the creator of the universe is the product of the not yet fully understood potential of language to create misleading concepts, unwittingly self-deceptive fiction, and the selfish desire to be favored by a universe that is dedicated to making us happy. Instead, God is most sensibly interpreted simply as existence as a whole, one that is indifferent to our subjective happiness or suffering. Subsequently, the question of God does God exist is pointless and does not deserve to be answered or even considered. All we can say meaningfully is God is existence, or God is. Furthermore, any inquiry into the nature of existence should be aimed primarily at how our subjective existence plays a part in the grand scheme of existence, and it should be performed through self-reflection and self-exploration, such as meditation. It is our own existence that is much less certain than the existence of God. So, you know, that again is talking about language, really, people using language to create a concept of God that is a personal God that gives a shit about anything. You know, the God is really all of existence put together. That is the reality. And what's interesting is that is the only thing that we can say by definition is real. And it's about exploring how we, as subjectively experiencing entities, fit into that reality. And well, things get really interesting when you actually do that, when you do some meditation and some exploration in various ways, because that's where you find your relationship to reality, your relationship to subjective experience, your relationship to physics. But yeah, really looking at it more from the subjective experience perspective, exploring that connection. So far it's been Joe and I talking. Who else has some comments, thoughts about this?
I want to say it's a very deep idea, which is probably why I never read through it. Like, I began and I thought this is too heavy for me. It's probably the heaviest, like it's philosophy, that's what it is. It's not an idea on climate change or education or health, you know, it's a really high-end idea. And yeah, I've not had such a thought in a while, so it was a bit heavy to process. So I'm kind of happy that we're analyzing it now. The first part was really good. The fact that, you know, like our own subjectivity and perception affects what we think reality is, because reality is different for different people. And I think emotions do control us to a large extent. That is good. The one on God is, I'm not totally in agreement with, because I do believe in God. But I must say, yeah, I agree with the first part about physics versus the subconscious. I think that's what it was. There was a lot of background noise on my end, so I didn't get all of it. But it's an interesting idea, I must say. And it's good that it's there, because I think it sort of puts into context everything else. Like, we shouldn't just discuss the safe ideas. We should definitely be willing to think above everyday situations and problems. Yeah.
We have a new person joining us. I don't know who that is, so hopefully we'll get. They don't have their mic on yet, so we'll get to them in a second. This idea, the next three sections are also really interesting, so I really hope we at least read through them. I wanted to make sure that other people also got to express their thoughts on that. Would anybody else also like to comment? Fernando, Michelle, Trent, any comments? We can just, if you got comments, if you're thinking about them, we can come back to that in a moment. I am going to share my screen and continue with section 4. So section 4, this is really heavy, and actually, this is one of my biggest ideas. So there's a lot to think about here. The idea of morality, that is, the idea of ethically right or wrong actions, is nonsense. Ethics is a matter of conflicts of interest, and the question of which actions are ethically acceptable or unacceptable is decided by the interests of a particular group. This, in turn, is a product of the psychological sophistication of the members of a particular group, human or other, and the environmental and economic circumstances in which they find themselves. As such, there are four main motives for a group to create ethical standards of acceptable conduct. The most primitive of these is the practical dynamics of reciprocity. The next motive is emotional, specifically the sense of empathy and the experience of commiseration with others. The third motive is also emotional, specifically the sense of community with other members of the group. Fourth and last motive is the desire for understanding, including intellectual consistency. Besides the self-evident ways in which the first three motives function to establish a system of ethics, there's also the less obvious motive of understanding. In order to appease this motive, we create various arguments to explain the relationship of oneself to other persons within our reality. The claim of morality, ultimately supported by nothing but belief, is one claim of such an argument. However, the most compelling argument is as follows. No conscious life is more or less no conscious life is more or less objectively significant than another because no conscious life has any objective significance. This is because the idea of objective significance is nonsense. I'm gonna let someone else just, oh, whoa, Andre is here, fantastic. And so he's connecting. We're gonna welcome the new people in a second. I just wanna finish reading through this idea. Anyone who acts with the idea that one conscious life, all significance is subjective. Anyone who acts with the idea that one conscious life is more or less objectively significant than another is acting irrationally. But of course, it is not unreasonable and perfectly normal for persons to have subjective biases regarding certain persons. Okay, while everyone thinks about what's just happened there, maybe we can welcome Andre and Hue. Hue, is that, can you?
Cesar, that's the name of his device. That's the brand of his phone.
I know, but hold on. Let's.
Oh, I thought.
Oh, there he is. Okay, now I can see him. Okay, great. Hold on, you're muted. Let's unmute you. Wait.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, very well. So I just installed the application on my phone because the computer just jammed and it's not working anymore. So I know I lost an hour and a half. So apologies. I just if you guys can you tell me how can I change the name like that's shown on the screen? I would be grateful. And
normally, if you right-click on your video frame, you should see little dots. Normally top right somewhere of your answer.
Okay, there's more and.
Were you able to do that?
What device are you on?
And if you hit your mute on the top of your square, and there's 3 little lines, and then it says to edit
Are you on a
profile.
computer or a phone?
Whatever you're on. It should be on your top of your picture.
Well, I don't seem to find that. I think it's no big deal now.
Wait, your name is Ken, right?
Huh?
Your name is Ken, right?
Yeah, that's my nickname actually.
Oh yeah, because I saw that in Inner Nations. So wait, I can actually rename you. Like, this is cool. It lets me rename you.
Oh, please do.
What do you want me to type in?
Just Ken, K-E-N. That's okay.
Awesome. Ken and Andre. Andre's been here before, but you know, we for the introductions we have like a format. You know, as a suggestion, your name, your nation, your professional and/or educational experience, if you want to disclose it, your main interest as a thinker, and your main concern as an activist, if you want to.
Okay. The point before the last, what was that?
Your main interest as a thinker and your main concern as an activist.
All right. So should I go ahead?
Please, yeah.
All right. My name is Ken. My nation. So I'm an Egyptian. That means it means that by nationality I'm an Egyptian. I think most of the Egyptians are ethnically Arabs, or a lot of the Egyptians are ethnically Arabs, Muslims and Christians. What was the third point? If I think I can check the I can check the chat.
Yes, it's in the chat. Your professional and/or educational experience. If you
So
want.
I'd like to call myself an entrepreneur or a businessman. I think that's more factual. My educational experience. So I did study a year. I did 1 year of education. I was like studying to become a biology teacher. I didn't continue that, and then I did 2 years of medicine. I'm also working to change that to business. My main interest as a thinker, I've been interested in international relations, and I'd say specifically the relations that are affected based on activities of religious groups. That has been kind of a nightmare. That how countries and international organizations would change their policies based on other people's religions or other people's claims of religious beliefs. And my main I'm not an activist, but if I were to become an activist, I would vouch for peace between different people, or radically different people, like between people from different religions, or from the East and the West, and or just politically, like from the right to the left. I think I would be in the area, but I'm not an activist. I wouldn't claim to be. So, sorry for taking so long.
No, just to let you know, we have we kind of call ourselves the Grassroots United Nations. So that's our unofficial name. So I think you're gonna like what we do here.
Well, I like that. I like this. Ambition is what got people like Karl Marx and other people to, if even for some other people who believe their ideas are baseless, yet they manage to get their ideas out in the world and for millions to follow it because of, I believe because of this kind of mentality.
Yeah. I don't really care much for the comparison, the analogy to Karl Marx, and at the same time,
I'm not a socialist, but it's the first thing that came to the top of my head. So
no, I'm joking. I mean it's true, but I'm joking. But and also I like to think that we can be much more impactful than the United Nations. So that's the other thing. Andre, Could you give us an introduction of yourself, please?
Sure. Let me try and remember all the questions. So I'm Andre Clements. I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm an African, even though I'm pretty light-skinned. My ethnicity, I suppose, is made up of predominantly Anglo-Saxon and Germanic tribes with a bit of this and a bit of that. Academic background, I originally got a degree in information design, but I'm really into lifelong learning. So I've also studied things like data metrics, transpersonal psychology, human capacity development, and a couple of other things along the way. Intellectual interest, I suppose, is practical philosophy. As an activist, I don't particularly consider myself an activist, but I am a member of Extinction Rebellion that I am quite passionate about. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I must apologize, I'm not going to be able to stay for very long.
Oh, that's too bad. You know, so just to let you know, I think we were discussing about as practical of philosophy as it can get. We were actually just exploring. Today is kind of an unusual meeting. All of our meetings are unusual, even though we try to make them usual. But we discussed a whole variety of ideas, let's say more practical ideas. We discussed some education policy. We discussed, you know, orphans, and we discussed sustainable energy. And then we were just kind of looking for other ideas, and Joe suggested that we stop on, pause to discuss this idea. This is really my fundamental philosophy that, well, yeah, this is, to me, this is, I wrote this idea, this is quite a lot of information, but we were reading through this section by section, and the last section that we just finished reading was this part, which is my theory of morality. And it's an amoral theory of ethics. And I was hoping that we could get some feedback from the people who were here for the reading. We could read it again. I'm going to leave it up on the screen.
So just to mention or to clarify, I was actually just listening in on the Facebook live feed, and you reading through the section is what made me think I'd really like to just pop in, if that's not too rude, because it's a very interesting.
Oh, fantastic. Well, then I would like to hear some commentary on this from anyone who would like to. I'll leave this on the screen so that anyone else can reread it.
If you could just zoom in, because if that's possible. If not,
Let me. Is this better?
yeah, I think that's much better. I can't see.
So, Rosemary, I guess you did not read this part. If you didn't read through the other sections, you probably didn't get to hear.
So before going into the substance of it, I just want to check on the semantics. The way the first section of it is worded seems to not differentiate very much between morality and ethics. Is that how you meant it?
It does not. Well, I mean, it kind of assumes that somebody understands that ethics and morality, or that morality is a subcategory of ethics.
Is it though?
Yes, that's one of the main points that I'm trying to make with this idea and with my philosophy. I mean, maybe it's not clear from that first few clauses, first few sentences, but yeah, that's, well, okay.
Would it be acceptable if I ask questions without reading the text, because I can't really read it from here?
Yeah, go ahead and let's see if we can answer it.
Yeah. So this is your own personal theory of morality. I guess. Okay, let me not guess. How would you say it's based on? or what would you say it's based on? Is it just personal subjective opinions, or you would think it's a result of a thinking process that you went through readings and going through hearing other people's opinion, and then after some time you manage to form your own theory in this case?
So I'll restate that section quickly, and especially for those. This is really a tremendous amount of information to process. It would, like, I wrote it extremely densely as I could, so that it was a quick read, but so that it could be read like 5 times. Basically, the point is to say that all of ethics is based on 4 main motives. One of them is reciprocity. So like the reason you don't like rob from people is because you don't want them to rob you, right? Or just, yeah, basically it's just business, right? So that's one reason for ethics. The other part is emotional, which is empathy and commiseration with others. You just feel bad for others. It's just, that's all it is. The other aspect of it is community. It's, you want to build a network that you feel a part of. So, you feel as a part of that fabric of society or group. And so you're connected to those others. So you don't want to harm others because you're hurting the fabric of which you're a part. The other, and this is the last motive, that's really the biggest chunk of all of that, is to say that our desire for understanding and intellectual consistency plays an essential role in developing our ethical thinking. And so there are many different arguments, there are many different claims that try to satisfy this desire. Basically, we're trying to make sense of the world. Morality is one of those ways that we try to make sense of the world, but there are other ways to make sense of the world. There are other ways that we can explain our relationship to other persons that are not based on morality. And so the last segment of that section is to give a kind of an argument of to satisfy the desire for understanding based on objective insignificance. Like basically to take advantage of someone else would be to make a statement that you are more important than they are, which does not make sense because you're not, because nothing is important. So it's actually based on nihilism. It's a combination of logical consistency, logically consistent nihilism, let's say. And I would say that's the strongest argument.
Right. So that makes sense totally. I couldn't disagree with you at all. But just to try to deepen my understanding a bit. So I'm gonna come off here just to know that the background of the question is, I'm gonna come from a religious background, yeah. Specifically, not all religions, but the Abrahamic religions, yeah. That they basically come from one scope. So some people might argue that while what you said is great and nobody can disagree with that, or with the aspects, like the criteria you used, at the end of the day, these are somebody else's opinion or another human's opinion, yeah. Who now this is the argument, it's not my personal, but this is the argument would be, who gave them the right to actually dictate that these are ethics, morals, or these are the criteria for us to identify our morality in the society? Because the people of the religion, if you would say, they would say, well, God does have that right to tell you what's wrong and what's right. But what's going on here is that we are giving ourselves the right to dictate to other people what is moral and what's not, and what's ethical and what's not. What would you say to that?
What I would say to that is, it would have been great if you had been here for the readings of sections 1, 2, and 3. so because
I'm
we
sorry
are.
for that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just like so. Actually, so we are right at 11 o'clock.
If you don't wanna answer
No,
until
no, no,
30
no.
next, I wouldn't mind.
No. We're fine. I just wanted to acknowledge a few things. So, we have like an official time frame within which we do these meetings, and we're basically at the end of that. We have quite a variety of people here who have been here from the beginning. We record this, and we tackled on a really big idea that normally we would not be doing in this meeting. Like these regular meetings, they're intended to be introductory meeting for new people, and these big, complicated ideas, advanced ideas, we would actually have specific meetings, that we would plan for in advance, so that people who are interested in these topics can attend them, whether they agree with that idea or not. But then they can, really get into it. And so we picked a really bad time, but I mean, at the same, because this was too big of an idea, we only had 40 minutes. And then some new people showed up, which kind of threw more things into the mix. So
Sorry.
what I'd like to do, no, I mean, it's still great. I'm just trying to, encapsulate it at where we stand. So what I would suggest is that we find some kind of a conclusion point for this idea. I kind of want to wrap up this recording. I don't want these recordings to be too long. I want it to go on YouTube. So maybe we can have some closing thoughts about what has been said, so anyone can get that on record, and we can resume this. Honestly, we haven't read through the full idea. This idea should be read a few times, so this is interesting. You can find this idea in my ideological profile. Actually, a few other people also support this idea, and so then we can have some closing thoughts. We can reconnect later to discuss this idea, but we can continue the discussion after we finish the recording. So I just wanted for us to have a chance for everyone to make their closing statements, whatever they may be. Then we finish the recording, and then we can continue the discussion for whoever wants to hang around. And so I'll do that. Rosemary, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Good. So I'll give my closing thoughts first. I'd like to say it was a great meeting as always, but what's interesting is that we're live on Facebook and there are persons looking on. I'd like to encourage everyone to use Agora. Just go on, create an account, get a feel of what this is about, because it really does develop your capacity to think and analyze and share thoughts with others, which in turn is what we're about, like that whole rewiring of society to sort of raise the consciousness, which would eventually lead to better governments. It's a really great process, and it's what we need as a human species right now. It's really where our world needs to be. Thank you. Next person, who wants to go next? Maybe, should I call somebody? What about Andre? Andre, do you want to go next?
I feel like I've already taken up too much time, so rather pass to someone who's been there from the beginning.
Okay. Ken, would you like to go next?
Just very quickly, I agree with Andre. I'm not supposed to talk again, but just quickly, I agree with you that if we want a better future, we better question the basis that our past and present are based on, because you never get a different result for the same actions. I mean, just starting with the questioning, and then it will lead to endless discussions, as you said earlier.
Okay. All right, Ken. Next, Michelle, would you go next?
I agree on everything. I don't think there's one thing today that I found that I didn't disagree. A few differences, but not disagree. I totally agree on everything that you had said, Ms. Rosemary. I could go on all of them, especially the last conversation between ethics and values and morals, which is something this country doesn't have anymore, to the most needed degree. we don't matter, and that is a political problem. So hopefully this year it'll change, or next year, I should say. But I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch. So if there's time, if we can get more on here and more conversations and more people, then slowly it will come back and say, hey, we're tired of it.
Yeah.
And it's not, don't be afraid to just bring up your own party. It doesn't matter which party, because everybody knows there's problems.
Yeah.
But they have to come forward. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Next, Fernando, closing thoughts?
All right, cool. Hello, new people and everybody that's joining us live. My biggest thing was rewiring that I took away from this meeting. I really do believe that the way we think and we process policy and ideas can really influence the future. And today we talked a lot of good things that I really, really already kind of do, but I wish more people thought of it that way. More people got civically engaged that way. And Agora is definitely a platform for us to all learn something and gain a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fernando. Next, Trent, would you like to tell us your closing thoughts?
Well, all I have to say is that I agree with a lot of your ideas, and I think that we need to end the corruption in this country.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Trent. And Joe, your next closing thoughts?
Muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
I think there's a difference between saying things are nonsense and saying things don't exist. So linguistic question of whether things are nonsense linguistically, and existential question or metaphysical question of whether something exists. And then you also have the question, does something, even if it doesn't exist in physics, does it make sense, or does it make sense in language? Does it make sense in terms of our subjective conscious experience in another way? So whether or not questions about God, questions about ethics may make sense in another way, even though they don't necessarily make sense if you analytically analyze them linguistically or in terms of physics.
Okay, thank you, Joe. And over to you, Cesar, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely want to discuss this more. So, but all right, my closing thoughts are, I just want to make them more administrative because overall I value the process so much. Our next meeting is on Sunday, unless someone organizes a meeting sooner. Please don't forget to update your ideological profiles with the new ideas that you decided to support. And participate in our Facebook group, Citizen Assembly, where we can also connect there and discuss ideas. But frankly, I think it's better to use Citizen Assembly Facebook group just to organize more meetings. But yeah, we can still continue a lot of these discussions there. And I'm thinking of what else I might be missing. No, it's just, we're working on a new format where we're trying to get more people to play a more active role in facilitating meetings and having their own breakout sessions. So please, well, I already said this in the opening notes, but it's really important. Please set aside time within your week, like let's say 3 to 5 hours, to actually do democracy, to 2 hours for a meeting, and then 1 to 3 hours to maybe think about your ideas or to talk to some other people about your ideas and get them better and get them ready to present at the next meeting. So yeah, please take charge. We need leaders who will take this forward. There's so much to be done. So please step up. And that's it for my closing thoughts. Is that everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Yeah, thank you.